Hey, Alysa, how are you?
Hi, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you too. I'm reporting live from the Gartner Tech Growth and Innovation Conference.
I can see that from your lanyard.
Yeah, forgot about that. Ton of AI on the agenda, of course, right? There's some on the privacy regulations, well, AI regulations and what they're shaping up to be, and a lot of like how do you drive no nonsense value out of AI? Not a shiny object. I mean, there's companies that have already built big businesses, ServiceNow and others that have big AI pillars. Um, so very real. How do you drive value from it? I think it's good that we're having those type of conversations. So I'll update more as we go. We just started.
Okay, well, I am curious, so you'll have to update us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Hey, I've been loving a couple of your posts lately. One on the SEC now jumping into the mix. Tell us about that. It seems like you talked about unsubstantiated claims. It seems very similar to the whole do what you said you're going to do kind
Right.
of that the FTC has taken. Is that true? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that that's true, and it's an interesting tie with the Gartner conference because there's so much frothiness with AI, and everybody wants to run to market and tout all of the sparkly AI things that they are doing and how it's going to deliver better results, better value. And so sometimes companies, you would not be shocked to hear, get a little ahead of their skis. And so I think, particularly with AI, we have Biden's executive order so on AI, and it's really put kind of the mark on as a priority each company where they have a jurisdiction and they have a stake on the issue that they need to be paying attention. And so we are starting to see the repercussions of that. We've seen what the FTC has done, has put out guidance about not using deceptive AI claims. And I just think it's interesting to point to these other examples of enforcement. So the post that you're talking about was the SEC's announcement earlier this week on an AI washing, which is a new term. We've heard of greenwashing, so now it's AI washing, where you're running out to talk about your capabilities on AI and how it's going to drive value. This was in press releases, it was on the website, but it's in other things, earnings reports. That can be deceptive if it's not supported, and you can face enforcement, including individual liabilities. So I think that those are some pretty clear warnings.
Gotcha. So yeah, I was curious what the SEC's jurisdiction here is, but um it's you're creating value by talking about AI, and you can't just it's very similar, but it's tied to enterprise value.
100%.
Interesting. Oh, awesome. Well, good. So we'll watch that. All right. So just another regulatory body, no big deal. The chatbots thing. You posted about chatbots and how easy it is for hackers to kind of get personal information out of these chatbots. And I got to tell you, like, my immediate reaction was, well, do we have to wait for the hackers? Because the use of this data by those app companies is kind of vague as well.
So
But
there's that.
yeah.
Look, we can't, Rome was not built in a day.
Mhm.
That may be the case. I think about it, of course, I represent companies. And so I think as you do risk assessments in terms of products that you're using and rolling out to market, uh, we have greater awareness now about some of the security vulnerabilities with chatbots. And so we've talked about in the past, inputs and outputs matter. The use case matters. And so this research by Ben Gurion University, what they showed was the way that even if it's encrypted, right? Because that's usually some of the answers you give is all the content is encrypted, that they were able to map and infer based on AI, some of the token matching and then using neural networks to get the meaning. And so I asked the question, like, would you want everyone to know all of your internet searches? Like, would you want that to be public? And I think similarly with these chatbots, I don't know that consumers like that they do have a right to privacy and expectation of privacy as to what they input in those, given the various use cases. And that the fact that that can be compromised, imagine put on the dark web, ransomed, I think companies are going to face some exposure on that front, both PR as well as legal. So I think it's another marker in the sand on, yes, there is this risk too, and there's an expectation that you have to address it.
And this idea of like where do we expect to be tracked? I mean, the whole LexisNexis story that came out last week, that they're tracking driving behavior and selling it back to insurance companies. I'm sure most consumers were like, well, who are they again? And why are they, who's LexisNexis? Why are they in the mix? and I mean, when you look at GDPR, right, you can't send that kind of data over if you've, been speeding or whatever. Like, it needs to be stored locally. It reminded me that we kind of need some federal regulations here, right? Just to like put a tent over this circus. It seems crazy to me that these data brokers in the mix that no one's heard of, and now it's not just an advertising thing. It affects your insurance premiums. It maybe affects your ability to get a mortgage. Like, who knows?
Yeah, I have another lens that I look at that, in that you think there are certain verticals, industry verticals, that are always high risk, right? Big tech is always going to be in the news for legal this or that. And I think what we've seen is this roving vertical that is in the spotlight for some type of privacy practice that may have long been common, not really discussed. But now, because you have both advocates and you have the media that are doing these really concentrated stories on data practices by different industry verticals, that once you bring the spotlight and there's awareness, there are questions. And so part of the risk assessment that we think behind closed doors is, if this was on the front page, like, how is that going to affect your company? Would you stand behind it? And I think you have to anticipate that so much of your data practices at this point will be public.
Yeah. Yeah. And what do you do from here? Knowing that, I mean, do companies like LexisNexis, do they continue to exist, and how?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're thinking about black letter law, and there's now plenty of black letter law, right, that says you can do this, you can't do that. But I think if you're only building towards what is enacted today, there's an expiration date on that.
Gotcha.
There is a fast train moving on this front, and really planning for a longer term strategy on your data practices.
Yeah, gotcha. Such a great way to say it. Well, Lisa, thanks. I want to get back to the conference, but I appreciate this little catch up. Thanks as always.
Good to see you.
Good to see you too.